Hey, there he is. It's Combat Coffee Club once again, 786 Sports. Shout out Adrian Lorenzo behind the decks. What's up? We're back once again for another UFC recap, breakdown, reaction, whatever you want to call it. We had a big card this weekend, UFC 319. Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis, two of the hardest names to pronounce in the UFC. But it was a great card. One of my favorite cards of the year. It had a little bit of everything. We're gonna go, through the main card and kind of break down everything that happened. There was a couple big moments, big stories out of the weekend. But I think the card in Chicago definitely delivered. We had a new champion crowned with Khamzat. A lot of different takes on his performance this weekend. A lot of analysts weighing in on and fans, a lot of fans weighing in on the reaction of his performance. It was such a dominant performance that some people say it was boring, and then some people say it was amazing how dominant it was. I'm in the camp that it was an amazing performance, and you don't see that anymore in the UFC because everyone's so high level that you don't see dominance like that. So to see it for 5 rounds was like, it was dope to watch. It was different because you don't usually see someone such levels above in a championship fight. So that was really cool to watch. We had 2 back-to-back knockout spinning back elbows, which was insane. I don't think that's the first time it's ever happened for sure, back-to-back, but in one single card. We had what else? Oh, we had Michael Venom Page with a sick performance that a lot of people thought his style wouldn't match up against Jared Cannonier. And we had Tim Elliott, the OG, he's tied for most fights in the UFC at that weight class. He was able to bring out a win at the beginning of the card. But the big story was Khamzat Chimaev becoming the champion. It was an interesting fight. I think a lot of people, the whole way building up to this fight, the number one thing was, will his cardio prevail? Will he get past the first, second round? Will he be able to stuff du Plessis and be able to hold him down and have enough cardio to even get past the second round? Everyone was saying if it goes past the second round, that's it. DDP got this. It was almost, I saw a video of them replaying every professional fighter, every analyst saying the same clip. Like, if Khamzat doesn't get it done in the first or second round, it's over for him. He's not going to be able to have that sort of performance with his cardio. And it was the exact opposite. It was 5 rounds of pure dominance, pure control. I think I saw a stat that was he had more takedowns than DDP had significant strikes, which is like insane. He couldn't get off anything. And a lot of the criticism was that it was boring because he basically controlled him for 5 rounds. He got a takedown every round within 30 seconds, and then the whole match was on the ground. But I mean, that's credit to him. Everyone knows coming into that fight that's what's gonna happen, and DDP wasn't able to stop it. But why it was so exciting, which I agree with some people, is because DDP is so awkward and unorthodox in his fight style, and his tank is crazy insane. Everyone thought like, oh no, like he's gonna figure out a way. Like, he's on the ground now, but he'll figure out a way. It almost reminded me of like a Rocky movie where like he's just getting dominated and beat up every round, but you just know, oh, at the end something's gonna happen. And his attitude was also a factor. It was like he would get dominated the first round and he would get up, smile, and be like, oh, I got this. It was almost like he had this, I thought he had like a master plan, that he knew something that no one else knew, and he was just waiting till the 3rd round, and then at the 3rd round he was gonna do something and put it on him, but it just never happened. But you're watching the whole fight thinking, damn, maybe in the 4th round, damn, maybe in the 5th round, and in the 5th round he did have a little bit of success where you thought, oh, he's gonna pull it off. He had him with 15 seconds left. Maybe if there was more time, he could have pulled it off. But it was exciting because you knew Khamzat was controlling the entire fight, but you didn't think that DDP was ever out of it. So it was cool to see that that dominance, but also like you're wondering when is DDP gonna pull out his bag of tricks? 'Cause every time he's just found a way to win, even though he's not supposed to win. It's like that his career is like not supposed to be what it is, but somehow he just like grinds through and finds a way to win, which that's like one of the traits that a lot of champions have. They find a way to win. But there seemed like there were just levels above him that and it's crazy because I think also what made it exciting is that you see Khamzat's past fights, and yes, he can take people down and he has control, but never to that extent. So you would see him against other wrestlers like Gilbert Burns or Kamaru Usman, and he has success, but then it gets back up and it's on the feet, and then you don't know what's going to happen. So it was also a lot of credit to him, but a lot of, I don't want to say blame, but DDP, you could tell that his level of wrestling and takedown defense was just not there, because there was I'm no wrestler, but I know the basics while training a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Like, when someone's coming at your legs, you're supposed to sprawl, and then there's a certain way to control your body so that you don't let them get that leverage and then just take you down immediately. Like, there was just simple things of him turning his hips or him stuffing Khamzat's head to not give him the leverage to push him up and put him down. And you just didn't see any of those like fundamentals when Khamzat was shooting. And so I think that had a big part to play with like the level of dominance. Whereas the other guys like Kamaru and Gilbert Burns, like you could tell their wrestling is high level. So yeah, he took them down, but they were stuffing takedowns. They were getting back up. DDP could not get back up. He was on the ground for 21 minutes and 40 seconds control time. And he had 529 total strikes landed, because he was in such control. He could just, pounce on him. They weren't deadly shots, but, that stuff adds up. And you just get demoralized and you can't get up. So I think now the middleweight division is like, okay, put on notice that this guy's and also, we look at him and you think he's just, a grappler, but I think from the body of work he's had in the UFC, you haven't really been able to see his full capabilities, because either his fights end so quickly or they go the distance, but he hasn't been able to. He has a pretty good striking that people are scared of because of his takedowns. So it plays into his favor that he's able to use the subtle feints and the subtle fakes to pretend he's gonna go for a takedown, and then boom, he gets you on the stand up or chokes you out or whatever the case is. So I think it's gonna be exciting to see, especially now with these young contenders that he has in front of him. They had them all there at UFC 319. I know he's looking at facing RDR in the next potential fight, but I think the middleweight division is in an exciting spot, and also it's already crazy how quick the guard has changed. Where I wouldn't want to see Izzy fight him, because that's not gonna go well. Paulo Costa might be a good matchup, but these guys are already on the way out. So it's crazy to see how he's just starting his reign, and it's still so young, and he wants to be active. So hopefully he can be active. But that was one of my favorite cards. Like I said, then we had Lerone Murphy knocked out Aaron Pico, which everyone was super hype on that fight. Aaron Pico coming from Bellator and PFL, young prospect, one of probably the most followed prospects. He's been wrestling since he was 15. Like, everyone's kind of had an eye on him, and he's finally in the UFC. And it's like, you want him to do well, but it's like everyone kind of was mentioning, if he can be patient and not overly aggressive, he's gonna be a problem. And he did just the opposite. And he was a little too trigger happy, a little too aggressive, and he just got caught, man. Like, he got knocked out to it. He was on the ground a little bit unconscious for a couple minutes. It was kind of scary. But it's like he was looking so good, so crisp. It's I hate when that happens. Like, I'd rather get someone. Well, I don't want anyone to get knocked out, but I'd rather someone get knocked out when you're just like, it's not your night. You're not getting your shots off. Something's just wrong. but he was just looking so crisp and so like he was ready for the big stage, and then boom, he got caught. Like Lerone Murphy just stayed patient and just waited for his shot. It was kind of timing his distance, finding the distance, and boom, spinning elbow, man. Just like Carlos Prates did with what's his name, Geoff Neal. Neal looked amazing as well, but I mean, this guy is just a young, scrappy, exciting fighter, and I feel like those guys are more inclined to take chances with like a spinning elbow versus someone that's maybe a veteran and is like, okay, like I need to win this fight because I don't know if I'm having a next fight is coming for me. Like I got to stay in the win column here. Whereas someone like Prates or even Murphy and Pico, you can kind of take chances because you know you have a longer career ahead of you. You have more fights. Like you're still young in the game. But yeah, man, it was super cool to see like those two knockouts back to back because you got to see some two exciting knockouts. You got to see pure domination with Khamzat, which is like rare. You don't see 5 minutes of just complete control time in a match. You also got to see Michael Venom Page, which a lot of people said his style would never translate in the UFC, but he has that super swaggy, crazy karate point style that's like super unorthodox. No one knows how to really deal with him, but he finally had a big test at 185 and he was able to win like pretty smoothly, which a lot of people said, you know, the competition in Bellator is not like the UFC, but he proved that like he's kind of a problem and he could fight at 170, which is crazy. He can kind of fluctuate between both. But his style is exciting to see. Like he dribbles under the legs, he pretends he's shooting a basketball, and then he quickly jabs you, and then he looks away. And then I heard him in an interview saying like this is the first time where he felt like, you know, he was himself, because sometimes people come from Bellator or another league and they feel like they have to impress the UFC, Dana White. Like it's more professional, it's more high level. Like they want to behave a certain way. But he just was himself out there, man, and you could see he was having a good time. He was in the flow state, and he was just like piecing them up, but like in his own style. And also, it makes it fun to watch because you're like seeing this guy fighting another grown man, but he's like pretending to play basketball in the middle of a fight. Like that's you could get knocked out. Like that's not a game, but he just seems so calm like that. It's interesting because like he was saying, when he's not doing that, he doesn't feel like himself. So like even he fights with his hands down, which is like, you know, 101. It was at least at mid level, so you're able to block. But he fights completely with his hands down. But he says like he wouldn't be able to do the things he does and move the way he moves if he's not able to, you know, fight in his style. So it was cool to see like all the different in the whole spectrum of the UFC. You kind of got to see a little bit of everything. But yeah, man, I mean, that was a fun card. Got to see a little bit of everything. Also, what we didn't get to talk about last time, but the UFC got to sign a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount Plus and CBS. Sheesh, indeed, man. That's a game changer. I feel like it's one of like we were talking about it the other day, but it's like a pivotal moment happening in the UFC and combat sports in general, where it's completely gone mainstream, where an entity like Paramount Plus and I believe it's Skydance, the partner company, is willing to invest billions of dollars and sees like, okay, this is a product we need under our platform that's going to bring attention, it's going to bring eyes, it's going to bring sponsors. And I mean, that's a lot of money. It's not as, obviously we're not at the NFL, NBA level. I mean, we're getting close to MLB. I don't know. but you know, Dana always said it. He's not competing with other leagues. He's competing with other organizations. MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL. Like that's where he sees the UFC. And I mean, I think now the public is starting to see that, yeah, they're one of the big boys in the sports atmosphere. And I think now from a fan's perspective, like it's gonna be more accessible to the casuals, or, you know, people that might not really be intrigued to watch the UFC, but now it's free, or not, it's not free. You're gonna have to have a paid membership, but you get access to these pay-per-views, or they're not Actually, they're not called pay-per-views anymore. I think they're going to be called premium live events, similar to the WWE and whatnot, where you get to see like these big cards, but now it's not $80 every time. Like people were making comparisons of like being a UFC fan costs you like $2,000 a year versus now you're a couple $100 and you get Paramount Plus. Like it's not just to watch
Which
UFC.
is dope.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, I've been a subscriber for a while. Their stuff is dope.
Underrated, right?
Super underrated. Good selection of movies. They have their own original content. This is a super smart move in my opinion.
100%.
I think it's the platform that we don't talk about, but it might be the best streaming one of all the ones that I subscribe to.
And I think that when this went down, no one had Paramount even in the conversation. They were like, no one even thought of. They were like, no, that's like more content, movies, whatever the case. But they were played it smart. They're like, no, we can kind of grab a lot of the market if we start building with an entity like the UFC. And a lot of people were assuming because WWE signed with ESPN, like, oh, that just makes sense. We're already here. But these guys came out of nowhere. I mean, who knows how that deal came about, but $7.7 billion for 7 years also. Plus, you have the CBS component, which if you don't even have Paramount Plus, you're going to see live events again on CBS, which that's a whole other audience, like people like our parents that maybe still watch CBS, ABC, NBC, and like, there's a premium sport happening on a weekend now on free cable. So that's going to be another gate that opens for more fans. And obviously the fighters, a lot of people are skeptical of how it's going to affect the fighter pay. But I mean, like any business, the more you grow, the more dollars you have. It's going to trickle down, whether it's tomorrow or in 2 years or 2 months. I feel like the fighters are all going to benefit. And when you think about it, I mean, I believe the UFC is only 30 years old. So, I mean, maybe you could talk more about baseball, but I mean, for sure, these guys were not getting paid what they're getting paid now 30 years ago. And that's because baseball is even older than 30 years. So, of course, people are going to want more money, but it takes time. Like, it's not overnight just because you got a $7.7 billion deal.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that they jumped into like the number 2 spot in America in terms of like global sports. Like
Really?
I think that they just like leapt basketball and baseball with this, not with this move. I think it's been moving in this direction for a little while now, but like maybe it's just because I'm, closer to it now that we cover
Right.
Combat Coffee Club, but it feels like it's much more a part of our society, UFC and combat sports overall is. And I think it's definitely taken the place. I grew up watching boxing a lot, like a lot of the De La Hoya, Tyson, like that appeal, that big moment that now I think UFC has that much more than boxing even. But it has that, I don't know, that cachet as that ultimate live event, like live sports event. And the accessibility now to everybody just kind of guarantees that you have, I mean, on UFC fight nights, on the main card nights, the numbers that they do, it's crazy. So yeah, for sure, that's going to come with fighters benefiting and the whole sport, all combat sports really benefiting.
Yeah, not to mention that you mentioned boxing, but remember now Dana's getting involved in boxing with Zuffa boxing and the Middle East and all that money coming in. They have Crawford versus Canelo in September. Like no one's even mentioning that, but that's might be a part of, who knows if that comes with the Paramount thing in the future or that's a separate pay-per-view or live event. But there's a lot of room now to grow all combat sports, and especially if someone like TKO and the UFC and Dana White is getting behind boxing and kind of trying to apply the UFC model into an older model of boxing that maybe, some people might say isn't the best model. Like the best fights don't get made because there's so many organizations, so many promotions. But if they're able to create one promotion and now with one licensing broadcasting partner and you get to see all the UFC fights, all the boxing matches, like they can be up there. Like you said, I mean, number 2, I'll take it.
And that's just us talking about the domestic component. What I think is interesting with UFC on a global level is like the range. First, it's a truly global sport, especially with Khamzat here. Like that whole, like it's the only sport I could think of that has engaged that region of the world to that extent since like basketball and like the Soviets,
Yeah.
you know, when they were engaged and active in that way. I think we're seeing this whole, whether it be Dagestan or whether it be Brazil or whether it be Mexico or whether it be West Coast, East Coast pockets, or South Africa, like DDP, like where it's a truly global sport too, which is, I don't think a lot of the other American sports, they don't have that kind of reach. Baseball has like an international Japanese and Latin American component, but UFC has reach into these places that I don't think we've explored.
You know, and what's unique about it is that, like you said, it's global because there's fighters from all over the world, but it's still a single person. So like even if this person's from Russia, you're from America, you can still root for them because you like them as a fighter. Right. It's not like such a team thing, right. But they're from everywhere. So like you get invested in the fighters, but they might be from a whole nother country, which I'm like, to your point. I mean, the Russians now are almost. I mean, if they're born and they grow up and they choose to go into combat or wrestling, like, they have a straight trajectory. Like they're just like farming guys out of there. But to your point, I think the global aspect of it is cool because like they also have all those markets. Like, and they were already doing this, but with the added obviously money that's coming in from all these deals, like they reinvest into these regions. Like they opened these performance institutes in China. They're opening one in Mexico. They have the one in Vegas, but they're trying to like do that so that they keep on building fighters, building a community, building the sport. Like I believe they're trying to build one in Africa. Like they're not just like, oh, okay, this is great. Like hopefully more people. Like no, they want to continue building this into, which I don't know if other sports do like to that level.
I think UFC or combat sports have like there's something very primal about human combat that I don't think the other sports get to plug into as much. That's why people like the fighting in hockey, for example. Like there's just something very primal about combat sports that connects across so many different cultures, languages, like it cuts through all that. And that's why it's really impressive to see that in 30 years they've reached this level and that kind of global impact, and it's only going to grow from here because the purses are just going to go up big time. And so once the purses go up, then now the economics make sense. That's where I could talk about the baseball side. Like I watched this happen in the Bahamas, for example. The Bahamas wasn't a market for baseball until a kid by the name of Lucius Fox signed for $4.6 million out of the Bahamas. And all of a sudden, like now it's a way of life for a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid that like, okay, now you created a whole new economic path, which is what it feels like is happening in Dagestan, for example, or in that part of I don't know if I'm, specifying the area of the world, but what it seems like the former Soviet bloc. I also think it's interesting because we're far away from it now in the year 2025 that we don't see the Cold War stuff, but like Russians and the Soviet Union used to dominate a lot of athletic things back in the Olympic days. Like, and now I think we're seeing a channel for them, for that former Soviet bloc. Like there were always good athletes there. Now we get to see it through combat sports where we only used to see it through like basketball with Jokic and Luka Doncic, and you get teasers of it. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like there's a big pocket of champions and high-level fighters from that part of the world in particular right now.
Yeah, I think if not 3 or 4 of the champions are from Russian descent, like currently right now. And I mean, then you of course had like the Khabibs and all that from before. But yeah, man, I mean, those guys are from childhood. Like if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. And I don't even know if they go to school. Like once they decide that that's their career path.
It's like Ivan Drago.
Yeah, no, it's scary, kind of like that. And I think Khamzat especially is a little more just his aura and the way he carries himself is like he's like a scary dude. I mean, you even see it like in the beginning of the fight when they zoom into his face and he's just like excited.
He's got a crazy look in his eye for sure.
Yeah.
Looking across it and it's like there's a I'm enjoying this so much and like I'm okay to kill you in this moment kind of thing.
And that whole like language barrier only adds to it, like
sure.
where you don't understand but they're speaking broken English, but it's like scary of how they're speaking it because they're only saying a few words because they don't know how to communicate like that.
Right.
So what the words they do say are like, "I'm gonna smash you, brother,"
Yeah.
and it's like, oh shit, I believe him. Like he means it.
And then I'm gonna go wrestle a bear when I go home or something like the
That's
compete
like the
stuff.
urban
Yeah.
myth that they all wrestle bears when they're kids. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm excited for 2026 for the UFC, but just even in general, I mean, the rest of the year is looking dope.
How do you think Dana feels about the boring fight thing? Like what him watching that fight with DDP, where's his head at? Is he hoping that DDP wins, do you think? I know you're guessing, but like in terms of the excitement level, does it
I think I mean, obviously, he always wants exciting fights. I think he even mentioned like he was expecting a little more of a back and forth, especially with DDP. But he understands the sport, and he understands that like it could look boring to some people, but I think the way he did it specifically, it's not boring. Now, does he do this 3 more times and then you're like, yo, this is not good for business? Yeah, probably. But his track record doesn't show that he's that type of fighter. It's just this was the game plan. The game plan was working. He can't stop it. Like, why am I gonna switch it up? Like, I'm gonna do this for 5 rounds and win the belt. In other fights, it didn't happen like that, and he adjusts. But I think as long as it's not like the norm for him, which I don't think it will be moving forward. He's not worried about it. And I mean, at the end of the day, it was a dominating performance. So it's either a crazy back and forth brawl or like high level match, or someone's dominating, and that's also, in my opinion, like entertaining, because you don't see that, like a flawless victory, Mortal Kombat style. Like you don't get touched 5 rounds, just domination. Like that's rare. So when you do see it, it's kind of cool. Like you're like, damn, this guy's controlling another man for 5 rounds and he can't do anything.
that does seem more impressive now that you've walked it through. The more casual fan, it's a little not tougher to watch, because now that I'm talking to you through it, I can appreciate it, right? Like you're at a championship level in anything, but you do want to see guys like stand up and strike each other.
Yeah,
Watching the Poirier fight, the card before, and watching this one is a different experience. You know, no matter how you slice it, I can get around to thinking like this is just as impressive. You know, but there is something to like standing up and striking that I think people are yearning for. So I understand some of the reaction. I also think it's kind of interesting. I grew up in this era of boxing, and like Don King was like the singular person was like the face of the sport, and it's funny that no other sport is like that except for the UFC with Dana White.
yeah,
It's like a singular face of the sport, and they have a bunch of faces. They have a bunch of champions, but like there's one person kind of pulling all the strings to make it happen, because even the matchups are kind of, they're subjective, right? Like they're not totally okay, you're number one, you face number two, and number three faces number four. It's based on some subjective component to put the most exciting fights together, basically, right?
yeah. I mean, there's a ranking system, but I mean, do they always follow it? Not really. And I think in the past, because the UFC was so new, like you're building your league off of stars like Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar, Chuck Liddell back in the day. But I feel like the sport has gotten so big where they're not dependent on stars anymore. It's just the product of the UFC is what people want to tune into. And to go back to your point of, being a primal thing that is like humans are so excited to see a fight. Like inherently, it's just like you're going to watch a fight. So it doesn't really matter who it is. You'd watch a TikTok video of two people fighting in a grocery store.
We're genetically programmed for this shit. Like back to the gladiator, like ancient Rome. Like this has been true for thousands of years. So like more true than like baseball. It's only been around for 200 years.
So it's like you see two people fight. It could be the two worst fighters, but you're like, oh well, at least it's a fight. Like let me see how these guys fight. See what happens. You don't know what's gonna happen. So the sport always has that factor to it. Whereas like a baseball game, if you don't really, or a basketball game, the two teams are like subpar, sub 500. You don't really have any stars. Like you might not watch the basketball game. You just be like, like what am I gonna see here, whatever. But a fight is like, well, I don't know who these guys are, but someone might get knocked out.
And the different styles of fighting attracts me too. Like that two guys can go into the ring or into the octagon. I'm sorry. Like in the ring, you're more limited to like a few boxing styles, orthodox, like straightforward, but there's not that much variation in terms of style. You look at UFC and like one guy could come in grapple heavy, another guy could be a wrestler, another guy could be a striker, and you're kind of putting it to the test together. And I think that that's pretty unique too. I think it's what puts it ahead of boxing, for example, right now.
Oh no, 100%. And then it's like every style is unique, but then within that style is like a different sub style, and then that person trained somewhere else or was born somewhere else, so they train a different way in their different style, or they used to be an athlete, so they do things this way, or they don't do things that way. So it's like there's no, like in basketball, like everyone runs a triangle offense in some sort of way, and it's like a proven tactic or play that people use that's been around forever. Or full court press, everyone pretty much does a full court press the way you're going to do a full court press. Same with football. I'm sure there's things in baseball, but in the UFC it's like, yeah, but what happens if like someone just throws a spinning elbow? Then your game plan and your style doesn't really apply to anything if you just get caught, and there's no reset. There's no like, oh, we'll get him next inning. It's like, nah, it's over.
No, it's like when I forget how many cards ago we were watching a fight, and there's a one guy who was like a Taekwondo guy, who was like really talented with the kicks, and all of a sudden, like the other fighter just couldn't handle like the kicks to the face, and like I saw nobody else throughout the course of that card fight in that style.
Yeah,
and it was just like a burst of, okay, this is different, and that dominated the fight. And then the next fight right after, you watch somebody that was more grapple heavy and more jiu-jitsu heavy dominate that fight. So I've quickly become far more of a fan in a short amount of time, thanks to Combat Coffee Club, but also as an observer of human performance in sport. Like it's just, I get it now in ways that I didn't get it before.
Nah, and then it's super interesting because someone like DDP, where like he doesn't have a traditional style, like you can't really name his style. It's just like,
can't put him in a box.
Exactly. But he, just because of matchups, timing, things that happen, he was able to amount. Obviously, he worked hard and like he trained his ass off, and he's a good fighter. But he kind of got lucky in his matchups and the timing of things, that he was able to win the belt and then have some defenses and be successful. But then someone like Khamzat comes along, and then it's just like, that doesn't matter. Like, because my style is just going to dominate your style. And then it happens again. And then it's like, maybe he's dominant for a long time and he never loses, but there's always someone or something that happens that like, okay, now we have a new champion. So like nothing's ever like for certain.
I'm glad you said that too, because I've also noticed that versus boxing, where in boxing, I feel like the underdog or the non-favorite usually kind of gets walloped in the fight. Whereas I feel like the more UFC cards that I've watched, like there's a really good chance that on the other side of that, like the person might have the belt, but he could lose it here too. And they could be somebody I've never heard of. And that it feels more like not evenly matched, but anybody's a threat.
Yeah.
Because you could just, to the fight we were talking about earlier, you could fight a perfectly crispy fight the whole way through, and you just get caught with one shot, and now you're maybe the champ, like.
There's always a puncher's chance,
yeah.
Like they say. Like that's the thing. It goes back to like you get in a fight in the street, anyone can win, just because like you don't know, there might be a cone behind you, you trip, and then someone like it's just anything can happen. So I think that's what makes it interesting. And then like you said, for boxing, like every time Canelo fights, just bet on Canelo. Like it doesn't matter. Like maybe he might have a close fight, but to the point we made earlier, like this Canelo Crawford card, in, I believe September 13, which I think we're streaming live, Combat Coffee Club, 786 Sports.
Shout out.
That's a good matchup because Canelo's, a little bit older, Crawford's younger. They're both, Crawford might be a little bigger. They're both at they're almost their peak, I believe. Maybe Canelo's a little on the other side, but it's an interesting matchup. You don't know, and that's because they wanted to make this fight the two best fighters. Doesn't matter the promotion. We're gonna get these guys, and we're gonna make this happen, which is part in large because of Dana White, UFC, and everyone in the Middle East. I believe it's Turkish or whatever his name is, putting it together. So I think that model that they're trying to apply to boxing is also going to benefit boxing, like in the long run. Like, who's to say they keep it up, or maybe it's only big fights and not, The thing with boxing is that 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 is hard versus the UFC is that the UFC you can watch from the prelims to the main event, and you're gonna see like good fights even if you don't know who they are. With boxing, it's like they kind of just fill 4 hours, and then you're watching the main fight, and it takes like so long, and then you're not really interested at all in the prelims or the undercard.
That's so interesting you said that too, because in watching these last few cards, I've been more engaged in some ways on those prelims, and that they feel like exciting fights. You're not just like putting off excitement until the very end when you watch the main card. So I think that that is very different from the way I watched boxing growing up, where you're really there for the main card. But I've seen some of the better fights I've ever seen in those prelims,
No,
or in the early parts of the card.
100%. And I mean, I'm excited. I mean, like I said, we're streaming our first boxing card September, Canelo versus Crawford, and I'm excited to see, like, kind of not just from the fights, but the product that they're gonna put out, because it's gonna be their first of hopefully many under the Zuffa TKO, whatever banner they're calling it. But yeah, man, we got boxing in September. We also have UFC 320 October 4th. That's a big one. Pereira versus Ankalaev, or I don't know how to pronounce these Russian guys' names, for the championship, and Marab versus Corey Sandhagen, and that card's stacked, so that's going to be a good one. And then we got a couple more to end the year, and that might be the last of the pay-per-views that we'll be streaming, and then the rest will be Paramount Plus and
So that's starting in 2026.
2026. And then so it'll be Paramount Plus UFC and ESPN for WWE, and who knows what else could happen in between.
It's a good time to have started Combat Coffee Club.
Sheesh. I'm glad we're doing Combat Coffee Club 786 Sports. I'll see you guys the next time.